Hello, welcome to the channel. I would like to share today in our video a very interesting incident that happened in 1904 in St. Louis, Missouri. And this revolves around a burglary or an attempted burglary of a jewelry shop. And we have a very interesting watchmaker, and I have been able to discover who this individual was. But first of all, I would like to tell you a little bit about the times and the mode of life in this period of American history and what it was like in St. Louis. So if we just look at a few statistics before I share this article. Now, this was a growing city, and it was rapidly industrializing, and there's a lot of commercial growth. By 1890, St. Louis had over 6,100 factories, and this was the fourth largest U.S. city in both population and manufacturing output. Industries included brewing, milling, tobacco processing, ironworks, and much more. Now, the city, the industrial activity did begin to slow during the 1890s. Now, this is mainly due to the Panic of 1893, and this caused significant reductions in population, especially in the flour milling. Now, as far as the demographics of the city itself, for St. Louis in 1904, we find immigrant communities, Irish, German, Italian, Eastern European, Lebanese, and Greek communities were moving into St. Louis. So this contributed to a highly rich and diverse urban fabric. Now, so the individual that we will be looking at is a watchmaker who came from Switzerland. So, and in the article, he's actually mistaken, almost it would seem, for a Frenchman. At least I think the reference is supposed to be meant because of the language. But now this period is also, and we must remember, around this time in American politics, Theodore Roosevelt and his various ideas speak softly and carry a big stick. This is a theme in his political career and the times. But the political tensions in the city, there were labor unrests. There was a St. Louis streetcar strike of 1900, which was a landmark event. And this lasted from May to September, involved 3,000 unionized streetcar workers, and led to violent confrontations, 14 deaths, and around 200 injuries. Now, these tensions reflected a broader struggle over labor rights, industrial power, political patronage, etc. So this is sort of the backdrop of our watchmaker's narrow escape, which we will be finding. But there was a lot of organized crime in the city at this time, and there were political gangs. And so we do see this, a little bit of this street gang culture. Probably we have to remember that as the fourth largest city in the U.S., I mean, we're talking New York, Chicago, probably San Francisco, and St. Louis. So this is a large city, and there is this struggle happening. And economically, times are probably fairly tough, especially after this 1893 upset with the crisis in the economy. And so times were challenging. Now, crime statistics and urban security. So we have very sparse information prior to 1930, but if we look at 1894, for example, we have approximately 80 homicides reported, 80 homicides. Now, between 1901 and 1910, this would be rising over 800 to 804 homicides recorded, an average of approximately 12 per 100,000 residents, over the decade. Now, property crime, such as burglary and theft, was more common but less documented. Now, our article will document this in one instance. These homicide figures help to illustrate that violence did occur and with some frequency. And this provides scale to criminal risk in the period. Now, it is interesting that this article is unfolding in 1904 because there was a World's Fair, the Louisiana Purchase Exposition. And this was what really put St. Louis on the global map. And so we have a World Exposition happening at the time of this robbery. So this is very exciting, and it's interesting to delve a little bit further. What watchmakers, if any, were presenting at this show? And there were probably, if this was representing the industrial arts, then certainly we could expect some sort of watchmakers in attendance. Now, it's not clear whether the individual who is in our article actually presented. However, he was a watchmaker, and he also had jewelry in his shop. So let us now look at this article, having seen the statistics for the period. And we do have this fascinating story now. And it reads as follows. And this is from a local newspaper from 1904. Burglar breaks window. And, this was in the St. Louis Republic, by the way. That's the name of the newspaper. So, burglar breaks window. A jewelry store proprietor frightens the thieves. A burglar smashed the show window of the jewelry store kept by John Montandon, and a Swiss watchmaker, it does say that he is Swiss, at number 4252 Olive Street at 4:20 o'clock yesterday. So this was in the morning. And this was according to a Swiss cuckoo clock in the establishment. So it's interesting that the owner probably looked up at the clock, which was a Swiss cuckoo clock, and noticed what time this occurred. So this happened at 4:20, and the burglar was frightened off by Mr. Montandon and his wife before he had rounded up a herd of terracotta mules and an array of 36 watches in the window, which had lured him to the attempt. Now, the individual we're speaking of, John Montandon, he was born on the French side of the Alps, and who wears a blouse and working suit of a French artisan. So this is a very interesting description of his attire, that apparently he had some sort of specialized watchmaking apron, which was very traditional in the sort of French, Swiss valleys by the workmen. So it's quite interesting. He goes on that the crash made himself, that they heard this crash made himself and his wife, who sleep in the rear of the shop, suppose that someone had fired a pistol shot on the pavement in front of the store. And now the article follows in this very accentuated dialect. We creep out, my wife first, me after, her to the front of the store. We make not so much noise as the cat, the kitten there. We listen very hard. Then me wife, she see a man pass the window. She say in whisper, he not killed. We think he been murdered. Then we see this man. He push his arm through our window. My wife cry, voila, voila, see is burglar. Then I don't think of this beautiful pistol. You see, I keep it here for the hold-up man. This is really interesting jargon from the period, the hold-up man. Oh, I could have suit him so beautiful, just like the chat. Slumber, I shoot him beautiful. Then he run away. My wife, she afraid to stay alone, so I don't run to shoot him. He is very foolish man for burglar business. These little mules, only 25 cents apiece. Only 25. Parbleu, he most foolish burglar. This is very nice, hilariously written. But for 5, us great scare. I only wish I shoot him just to make identification for the police. So we have a very interesting, almost comical rendition of his accent by the journalist after interviewing him. So clearly there was a burglary attempt, probably threw a stone or a brick through the window. It crashed. This loud noise sounded like a gunshot to them, and it woke them up. This is 4:20 in the morning. They had, was it 36 watches in the window, as well as these terracotta mules. And apparently either he didn't get anything or just some terracotta mules, which were probably some sort of knickknack that were being sold. But this is very interesting. Now, we know who this individual is. Now, this is John Montandon. This is John Ernest Montandon. And he is actually, now we do know that there is record of a watchmaker between 1890 and 1910 in the St. Louis area, Montandon J, also Montandon John, watchmaker. And this was in Gould's St. Louis directory for 1907. Later we find Montandon John watchmaker, 4252 Olive Street. And this is exactly this address. So we know it's the same individual. So now this is not an American-born individual. He's an immigrant, obviously, from Switzerland. And there is another article from a Swiss newspaper from 1912. This is 8 years later. And this is an announcement seeking a good watchmaker to relocate to work in an atelier in St. Louis. And the announcement directs the interested party to contact Oscar Montandon at Rue Succès 15A. That's Success 15A in La Chaux-de-Fonds. Now, this mention of Oscar Montandon appears to be Oscar Ferdinand, who lived from 1873 to 1949. And he was a repasseur of the Montandon de Bratzel genealogical branch. And he was domiciled in La Chaux-de-Fonds. Now, this is quite interesting because this connection with this previously mentioned John Montandon, this gives us this John Ernest, who was a brother. Now, this family was indeed heavily involved in watchmaking. And there is another brother, Ariste Armand, who lived from 1879 till 1917. And he was a horloger à Genève, so he was a watchmaker in Geneva. Certesseur, he was Certesseur, but he would die in Besançon in France. So these seem to be very transnational, moving between Switzerland, France, Switzerland and the US, etc. Now, another brother, Gaston Arthur, he was living from 1875 till 1916. He was Certesseur au Locle. So he was also in the trade. The father, Julius August, he lived from 1844 to 1894, and he worked as a Certesseur also in Locle at Micot, number 656. He can be seen in the 1892-1893 Davoine Almanac, listed under Montandon Julius. Now, an obituary from 1929 for Paul Henry Montandon mentions that the brother of Julius August was mentioned among the list of mourners. This is Monsieur et Madame Jean Montandon et leur enfant à Saint Louis du Missouri. So this once again confirms that he is John Ernest of this family. And so the brother of John, this was Paul Henry, this was another brother. So when he died, we have this here. And it specifically says that Mr. and Mrs. John Montandon of St. Louis, Missouri. So we have found our watchmaker. Indeed, the whole family was involved in watchmaking. We already see several generations here. But this is quite interesting. And it is to be wondered why they are looking already in 1912 for another capable watchmaker. Was there an expansion going on, or was John moving out of the watch business? But clearly he had been there since the 1890s, since around 1890. So, and this is a rather interesting and tumultuous time in the city's history that we have a lot of movement happening, social movement in this city. And when we are just examining the whole style of life at this period, this was a large city. It was on the edge of the frontier. Now the frontier had moved west, obviously. However, this would have been a sort of newly settled area in a sense, in that everything, all the buildings were quite new. They were building this large town, that there was this very almost pioneer building of America feeling, this development, the historical period in the nation's expansion towards the west, and this was already established, very Americanized area on the Mississippi River. We have a lot of very interesting things happening, and indeed these immigrants moved from Europe to this the hope and dream of the American dream, this burgeoning metropolis of St. Louis. So it must have been quite fascinating. But I just wanted to share this episode of this theft, and indeed we have this brave watchmaker, who pistol wielding, who was ready to shoot the individual, the burglar, for the police to be able to identify him later, but he didn't need to do it in the end. So I just wanted to share this episode, and I hope that this was interesting, this history and this dynastic sort of development of this family across transatlantic Switzerland, France, America, etc. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, I would be happy to receive them. But once again, thank you for your wishes, your attentions, and I wish you a good evening. Bye-bye.